It has been a while. I have actually had quite a lot of videos that I've wanted to post, but it's just been a matter of whether I can be bothered and just things getting in the way really. But I want to try and upload more, especially when there's really not much else I can do. So as you will have guessed from the title of today's video, I will be asking Google's most frequently asked questions about autism and ASD. And to make things even more fun, if you have seen the videos where celebrities ask Google's most frequently asked questions about them and they peel the stickers off the sheets, I have done the same thing, except mine is more like a BTEC version. So we'll see how this goes. You can basically see the question through it, but I think it's fun peeling the stickers. So we will start with the do's. So, do autistic people? So the first one is, do autistic people have empathy? I hope so. I think there's a misconception towards people with autism in that they don't have feelings and they don't have emotion. That's called psychopath. This is autism, and we're actually on a scale where we feel it a lot more strongly than the average person, usually. We might not show it, but we're very emotional beings. Do autistic people talk to themselves? Doesn't everyone talk to themselves? Like, you know, what am I having for dinner tonight? Why is that person annoying me? So the next one, do autistic people know they are autistic? Not all the time, to be honest. Some do and some don't. If you have more severe symptoms or it's a lot harder for you, then you're gonna think that something's wrong. You might not necessarily think you have autism, but you'll think that something's different. But usually people who are autistic kind of have a feeling that they're different. I think it's worse when you know that you're autistic but you've not got a diagnosis and you can't get one, and it's just really hard at the moment with the NHS. Do autistic... Seriously? Do autistic people cry? All the time. Yeah. Why have people said that autistic people don't cry? We're emotional people, we're not psychopaths. I'm not good at this, am I? I'm not really answering it properly, but we'll continue. Okay, I have now gone on to the Is Autism a disability? Indeed, it is a disability. Is autism genetic? That's very debated. It's still being researched really, because no one really knows how someone gets autism. I think there's more research indicating that it's like a gene that's switched on. So I guess you could say from what I've read, that it's inherited, but you don't necessarily always get the gene, and then the gene has to be switched on, like with other, usually through like a traumatic birth or something very early in your life. For me, autism does run in my family. I have family members that have it, and I did have a traumatic birth. I had a condition, I've forgotten the name, but I'll put it on screen here what it was, and I had to be in a little light bed, a lamp bed or something. But yeah, so it's not really fully understood yet. Is autism a mental health diagnosis? Not really, no. A lot of people with autism suffer from a mental health diagnosis, like anxiety, depression, but it's not classified as a mental health diagnosis. It's classified as a developmental disorder or a neurological disorder, because it does hinder your developmental process because your brain is different to a neurotypical person, and yeah, it's a learning disability. Is autism and Asperger's the same? So in my last videos I labelled myself as having Asperger's, which I've now changed the title to because it was called Asperger's, but the diagnosis has changed now. So autism and Asperger's used to be a separate diagnosis. I was diagnosed with Asperger's. So if you were diagnosed with autism, that typically meant that you were more severe. You would lack maybe communication skills, you needed more help and aid, and you struggled with language, you struggled with cognitive skills. And then with Asperger's, it was more milder. You had better communication, you'd have good cognitive skills, you'd have a higher IQ, you were able to kind of live on your own without help, but you still had autism. It's just a type of autism. But if you have autism on its own, you don't necessarily have Asperger's. But now it's all been scrapped and it's now just autism or autistic spectrum disorder, ASD. So if you were to be diagnosed now, you'd just be diagnosed as autistic. And that's because autism is a spectrum. Every person is different. Next one, which is can autistic people drive? The answer is yes. We can drive, we can function, we are, can autistic people love? What are with these questions? Like I've said already, we are not psychopaths, we are emotional people. Can autistic child become normal? Unfortunately, whoever Googled this, the sad news is no. Autistic people in general, you can't become normal, there is no cure as of yet. Can autistic people get married? Yes. If you're asking if autistic people like getting married or like being in relationships, then that differs because everyone's different. And some people really, really don't like social contact, really don't like being in relationships. But yes, we can get married. That's if I get a boyfriend. Can autistic child pretend play? It is harder for a lot of autistic children to be able to pretend play, but children with autism can pretend play. I was able to pretend play, I loved it. I can't answer that because for me, I was a very social child, so I did want to be the centre of groups and stuff, which is another misconception because not all autistic people are antisocial. A lot of them can have a lot of friends, can be popular, and others can not want any part of that. So, and I wanted to have friends, and so I think I learned how to pretend play, and I found out that it was really enjoyable. And in a way, I kind of used pretend play, or when I played with Barbies, I maybe used it to develop social interaction. I would act out how a day went or what I've seen on TV, and I think I learned a lot of social skills just from doing that. So why is autism increasing? Autism isn't increasing, it's actually just because there's more research being done, the understanding of it is increasing. Back in the day, in fact not that long ago, it wasn't understood at all. So I think people were misdiagnosed, or people would be told that they don't have it because it didn't match the stereotypical traits of autism. But now that we have more understanding, we know that it's not as obvious as it looks, and everyone's different, and yeah, it's just that more people are getting more diagnoses. Why is autism a spectrum? Because everybody's different. Why is autism more common in boys? Like I said, it wasn't as understood, and boys with autism tend to show more signs that they have it, like they tend to be more obvious in that sense. And girls, I don't know why, but girls are very good at masking a lot more. Also, When they came up with the traits diagnosis, they were testing on boys only. So of course that only suits them. So when they were testing girls, then they didn't fit the boys' traits. No wonder they weren't diagnosed. Why is autistic brains different? I don't know. They are different because of wiring, biology. I'll put a picture up here of what an autistic brain versus a neurotypical brain looks like. But yeah, now moving on to why do autistic people like trains? That is a stereotype, and that's just a common interest that people with autism have. A lot of people don't have an interest in trains. It can be anything. It's a special interest. Trains tend to have a lot of sensory stimuli. Because our senses are heightened, there's more fascination towards that. Trains are very fun to categorise. You know, put them into different sizes, different types, different colours. Organising objects is quite a fun thing to do. Why do autistic people rock? It's kind of a coping mechanism. When someone with autism gets overwhelmed, they use coping mechanisms. Some children can rock back and forth. It can be more obvious for different people. Do autistic have trouble sleeping? It's common for people with autism on the spectrum to find it really hard to sleep. That could be because it's common to have a side diagnosis of ADHD. It's also been shown that if you are on the spectrum, you do have a lot less melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. You produce melatonin, which puts you to sleep, and people on the spectrum seem to have less than the neurotypical person. So obviously it's going to be a lot harder to sleep. I really struggle to sleep. Another thing with sleeping as well is night terrors are quite common, and yeah, I had those a lot as well. Another question that I did see on Google was that autistic people are tired all the time, and I guess there's different reasons for that. One, we're overwhelmed a lot more. It's a lot of energy to be around people, and you just kind of get worn out through the day. And then two is, like the melatonin, we get less at night and more in the day. So it's just this like chemical imbalance thing. So we're moving on to the what are. There wasn't that many, so. What are autistic special interests? Everyone gets obsessed with things. Everyone has interests in stuff. You have hobbies, but when you have autism or you're on the spectrum, you kind of take it to a different level. Typically, you'll have a very obsessive interest in something, and you cannot focus on anything else. You cannot do anything else. You don't do it among other things. It's just that. It's like an all or nothing, and you know everything there is to know about it. It's all you want to talk about, and it can get on people's nerves where you don't stop talking about it. If you asked someone a question, any question about their interest, they will not stop talking about it. So sometimes that can go on forever, or you can move on and you can find a new interest over time. For me, I had a lot of different special interests growing up, and they always changed. When I was really young, I think about 7 or 8, I became absolutely obsessed with animation. I thought I invented stop motion. I was once playing with my Barbies and I thought, oh my god, what if I could create a film of my Barbies without my hands in, by just taking different pictures and shoving them together? And then a few years later it progressed into making video montages of me acting with my sister and my cousin, just doing different acting scenes, making little films, movies. Then I made music videos. So I guess you could say that I've had a lifelong obsession with filming. It then turned into my travel music videos, which I do, and now I just like anything filming. I just really like doing it. I have had a lot of different things along the way. I was obsessed with crystals and rocks. I'm gonna end up waffling because of this. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question. What are autistic people good at? Well, like I said, we're all different. We're all good at different things. I think it's a stereotype that we're good at maths and memory, but that is not the case. I think if you're lucky to make maths an obsession or a special interest, then yes. If I made it a special interest, then yes, I probably would be very good at it, because it becomes this obsession and it's all you can focus on. So you become very good at what you're fascinated on. The final question is, how does a child become autistic? I've already talked about this, and no, it is not from the MMR vaccine. How does it feel to be autistic? It does not feel good as a child. In my opinion, it was really hard, very noticeable at home and towards strangers. Obviously, like I said, it differs for different people. It's hard when you can't express how you feel, and it's hard in relationships. It's hard for different reasons. The majority of the time I'm fine, but I think those moments when you struggle because of your autism, I think that's when it's like, why do I have to have this? Why can't I just deal with the noise? Why does it make me overwhelmed? The final question, how does autism affect social interaction? If you don't like noise, or you're very heightened by noise, then social interaction can be really horrible. Again, it differs. Some people are okay in big groups of people, some people absolutely hate it. In my experience, large crowds of people do tend to make me very overwhelmed. I try really hard to ignore it. I try really hard to not let it affect me, but sometimes it does get the better of me. But I do find nowadays, I'm finding that I cope a lot better. I'm a lot better in smaller groups of people, but it's with people that I know. I really don't like strangers. I really don't like making new friends, and I hate public areas. I really don't like people bumping into me. Like neurotypical people, some people like social interaction and some don't. It's the same with autism, except if you really don't like it, you'll know about it. So yeah, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed, and give it a like and a subscribe. Or is it up here? Thanks for watching. Bye.